All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is from our Rise of the Mortarchs Finals. We have Randommnix versus Alrik Ral. We have Randommnix leading the Skaven forces, and Alrik Ral is leading the Empire. This will be the series from our quarterfinals, and let's go over the armies that we have for you here today. From the Skaven, we do have a Deathmaster Snickich. Is going to be the Lord. He's going to be flanked by an assassin as well. So, we have Deathmaster. He's going to be bringing his Deathmaster sigil, and he's also going to have concealment bombs and just slippery. And then for the assassin as well, we are going to be seeing Rival Hide Talisman, providing a nice -40 to melee attack, the Assassin's Trophy, and concealment bombs for him as well. For the rest of the units, we have a front line of Clan Rat Spears and then Skaven Slaves for the front line. There's some more Skaven Slave Spears behind them, right in front of these pair of Plague Claw Catapults. And then on the far flank, we have some more Clan Rat Spears with some Rat Ogres for mobility hiding amongst the tree line. We have 3 units total. And then we have the Council Guard actually in the back, protecting these Poison Wind Mortars who are waiting for their chance to strike. And we also have a Plague Priest up on his Plague Furnace, and he's going to be bringing Pestilent Breath. We're going to be bringing Vermintide for nice Clan Rat summons, and Pestilent Birth for the Plague Monk summons. So, fairly straightforward build. You got the Plague Claw Catapults for the ranged, and the Rat Ogres for the mobility to help clean things up, keep those Empire Knights at bay. And as for the forces of the Empire, we do have the Sunmaker, the ROR Hellstorm Rocket Battery for the long range. Now, I think the Plague Claws will actually be able to outtrade that, though the damage that it will cause will be considerable. We have Boris Todbringer up in the sky, so he is a nice little regen lord. So it's pretty much discount Karl Franz. He does have Crush the Weak, the White Cloak of Ulrich. He has a Middenland Runefang, which is his regen ability, and then Foe Seeker. For the front line, we do have a Spearman. We have the Sigmar Sons, and some more Spearmen and Swordsmen kind of mixed out the front line. And then we have a couple more Spearmen kind of in the rear line, helping to protect that Sunmaker. We also have a Jade Wizard who looks like he's just on foot, going to be bringing Awakening of the Wood and Earthblood, and that Earthblood is going to be looking to be cast on these Empire Knights and Knights of the Blazing Sun, as we have a pair of each on the left and right flank for the Empire. But that will be all for today, and let's get this battle started. So the Plague Claws are kind of inching forward and will begin firing fairly shortly. They should be in range in moments, as Boris is also kind of pushing forward just a little bit. But now the Sun Maker does open up and is firing right into the middle of this formation, targeting that Plague Claw Catapult, doing a ton of damage. So my initial assumption were that Plague Claw would be able to outtrade that Sunmaker. May be a little misfounded, as it is already routing from just one volley. So that Sunmaker is going to be able to quickly deal with the Skaven artillery, as another volley is raining down in, targeting the second unit, as it does a ton of damage, as well as it is going to be routing itself. By the looks, it does stabilize, so maybe it's going to be able to get one volley off, but another volley from that Sunmaker will surely put that thing out of its misery, and away they will be going. As here comes the rockets once more, targeting the opponent artillery, and down it will go, routing it off the field, as we do have a nice little summon out in front, and it does look like it has actually shattered that Plague Claw in only 2 volleys. That is considerable, and just showing how accurate and devastating that Sunmaker can be, as we will see some more volleys soon to follow. Though Boris is being caught out with a Deathmaster sigil, as both of the Assassin and Deathmaster are on top of him, doing a bunch of damage, as the Clan Rats are also engaged. That is just a ridiculous amount of damage. Boris is already at half health, and Awakening of the Wood trying to slow things down. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun do charge in with the Empire Knights, trying to free their lord. He will be able to get out, and he will have his healing, but that was a dangerous situation for Boris to be in. The summon is also routing, and here comes the volley of the Sunmaker once again as it is firing in, targeting the Council Guard this time, and then it does switch over to the Poison Wind Mortar, who is going to be quite the threat for the Empire front line. And here are the Rat Ogres getting charged by Empire Knights and Knights of Blazing Sun with Boris in assistance, and that will make quick work of them, even with those Skaven Slave Spears. I mean, the Skaven Slave Spears anti-large is kind of just a footnote. They really aren't going to be doing a whole lot. Balance Power does initially take the favor of the Empire, as we have a nice little either Awakening Fluid or Earthblood was going off by the Mage of Life. But right now, the Assassin are kind of mixed in a bit with some of the Sigmar Sons and Spearmen, though we do have some of the Plague Monks and a bunch of Skaven Slaves mixed in, which will probably overwhelm those Spearmen and Sigmar Sons in due time. But at least the Assassins are out of the picture, at least for the time being. Sunmaker still raining fire amongst the Poison Wind Mortars. It does look like the Plague Claw Catapult is back online. I'm sure the Sunmaker will be switching its target focus fairly shortly with its final volley, already using all of its ammo. So as long as those shots have been able to connect fairly well, it will have paid well for its use and able to use all of its ammo, unlike the Plague Claws of the Skaven. The Plague Priest is kind of chasing off some of the units from the Empire, but they will be just kind of reorganizing themselves as these Clan Rat Spears are all kind of routing themselves, and things are looking fairly good for the Empire, as they do have the mobility advantage and should be able to stay clear of the Deathmaster and the Assassin, though that may not be so true for that Jade Wizard, who they are quickly chasing down. So without the assistance of some of the mobility of the Empire, we also have the Silver Bullets as well, which I missed earlier, but the Deathmaster Sigil does go down on these with Jade Wizard, as the Assassin and Deathmaster do get on top of him, and just 2 hits is all it's going to take. That Jade Wizard, 2 hits and routing. On the third, it goes down, and away goes the magic for the Empire. Though with Boris having his regen, that is not the biggest loss in the world. They were able to get at least a little bit of spells off, but I think the Empire surely will be missing that Jade Wizard. But the Knights of the Blazing Sun are cleaning up shop in the backline, now going to be targeting that Poison Wind Mortar fairly soon. And they do have pretty much free reign right now. There's not a whole lot. There is 1 unit of Rat Ogres. Otherwise, those units have pretty much been pushed off the field for the time being. You really just have to worry about the 2 Assassins and that Plague Priest, as pretty much everything else is left. We do still have the Council Guard, and otherwise just Skaven Slaves and Clan Rats for the rest of the army. I think the mobility for the Empire really should kind of look and target that Rat Ogre unit, who is a bit isolated. Really just kind of clean up, push everything off, make sure these Poison Wind Mortars do not fire any more rounds, as I'm sure these Knights of the Blazing Sun will surely be doing. The other units of Empire Knights will be probably looking to make sure that these Clan Rats and Clan Rats Skaven Slaves are going to be kind of pushed off as quickly as possible. And here is Boris kind of scouting overhead as the bulk of the Skaven front line is buckling, and the balance of power shifting more and more in the favor of the Empire. We look over here, which is really the only pocket of the Skaven really have left, is in the Plague Priest and its Assassins, as they will be chasing off a unit of Spearmen, but I don't think that will be enough to stop the Empire, because it's just the mobility. And I mean, these Silver Bullets have pretty much used none of their ammo, and that will be very well used against that Plague Priest with its very large target profile. And there's pretty much no other way for any of the Skaven units to get into that back line, as Boris is going to be hunting for these Rat Ogres now, eliminating the last of the true mobility that the Skavens have left, and the rest of the Skaven Slaves being mopped up as well. Things are definitely looking good for the Empire in this battle. Skaven still trying to regroup as many of their units as possible. Some of these Skaven Slaves are trying to regroup, but otherwise, the Empire Knights and the Knights of the Blazing Sun are pretty much cleaning up everything and anything that is left. Boris doing some good work getting rid of these Rat Ogres, as they will soon be routing by the looks of things. And yeah, these Empire Knights will probably be cycling around to deal with those Skaven Slave Spears, but those probably aren't even a consideration. They are just Skaven Slaves after all. So now, yeah, the rest of the 2 armies are kind of approaching. The Empire definitely has the advantage with what they have been able to bring. And And we'll see how these final engagement shakes out as a nice little charge by the Empire Knights into the Rat Ogres, but the Assassins are coming in, looking to do as much damage as they can to these now isolated Empire Knights unit. Though even the loss of that unit won't spell disaster for the Empire just yet, as the Silver Bullets do open up into that Plague Priest, as it is doing quite a bit of damage, as we have some of these spearmen kind of rotating around to screen out these Skaven Slave spears as much as possible. These Rat Ogres have been pushed off, and the Empire Knights have been able to get away. But we do have some of the Clan Rats coming in, looking to kind of muck up that front line. We do have the Sunmaker unit right now just kind of acting as chaff as they take the charge from those Clan Rats. And here comes the Assassin down the hill into Sigmar Sons. A nice Pestilent Breath going through the front line, though it could have been a lot better had it gone lengthwise across these units. And the Silver Bullets continue to fire freely into that Plague Priest. Taking that out is probably key for the Empire, because after that is down, they really don't have any way to deal with the mass of troops that are left. The Assassins are just pretty much good against single entities. And once that Plague Priest is gone, that will be the end of the spells and the area of effect control that the Skaven have. But the Assassins are kind of chasing after these Silver Bullets. I think having those Silver Bullets in guard mode might even be a little bit beneficial, because then they would still be able to fire into these Plague Priest. It looks like some of the infantry units are able to screen out, but we do have a little mass exodus of some of the Empire state troops, as they have 3 units routing, but that Plague Priest is starting to get pretty low, as Boris himself is hunting for that Plague Priest, as the 2 Assassins are currently occupied with Sigmar Sons and some more swordsmen and spearmen, as their target is quickly getting away. And that will be our match, as the Empire will take game 1. And yeah, the Knights of the Blazing Sun doing very, very good work. And the Sunmaker as well, just cleaning up those Plague Claw catapults in 1 volley for the first one and 2 volleys for the second one. And on the second volley, it is actually able to shatter the crew. That was considerable value just from those 3 volleys alone. And then the continued shots from there, racking up a total of 174 kills. A very nice build by Alrik Ral against the Skaven here. The Skaven really didn't have the answers that they needed to really deal with the mass of troops that the Empire was able to bring. And the mobility was also a big problem for what the Skaven had. They didn't, potentially had you brought the Warp Lightning Cannon against the Empire Knights or Jezzails, I think that may have been a potentially better option, though I think the the Sunmaker would have done pretty good work against those units as well. But a very good match for the first one. We will be getting into the second match right after this, so stick tuned for that. Alright, for the second match of the series, we have Randommnix with his Vampire Coast, very strong with that faction, against Alrik Ral's Wood Elves. So as we load on into the second match with Alrik Ral up 1-0 against Randommnix, we will go over the armies that they have brought for us today. For the front line of the Vampire Coast brought by Randommnix, we do have some Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs with a couple of Scurvy Dogs up in the forefront. We do have a couple units of Bombers as well to help get through kind of those Dryads and Eternal Guard as they do get into the front line. And then for the backline support, we do have 3 units of Zombie Pirate Gunneries with handguns, and also we do have some long range in the form of some deck gunners, and the artillery is going to be a pair of mortars on top of that. We also do have some Morghuls acting as support. We have the regular Morghuls and the Night Terrors, who do have terror themselves, and the Lord will be Count Noctilus up on his Necrofex Colossus. He looks like he'll be bringing Raised Dead, Invocation of the Heck, Wraith Storm, and Captain's Wrath's Moondial. Pretty standard stuff for him. So yeah, I do really like the pick of the 2 Morghuls. They are very good at screening the Wood Elf Cavalry, as well as mixed in with the Scurvy Dogs. They will actually win those engagements in my experience. Mortars will do well against the lowly armored kind of infantry that the Wood Elves will be bringing, especially their archers, which pose the biggest threat to the Vampire Coast. Now for the Wood Elf army brought by Alrik Ral, we do have a Glade Lord or Glady up in the sky. She is going to be bringing Prey of Anathrema and Arrows of Kurnus. Kind of the arrow is going to be helping kind of snipe out some enemy artillery, and Prey of Anathrema always good with the support, especially because we're going to be having 4 Deepwood Scouts, actually 5 of those, as well as a Waystalker, bringing some more arrows to the field. For the front line, we do have 3 units of Dryads mixed in with a couple of Eternal Guards, with a couple more Eternal Guards acting as rear support for once these Deepwood Scouts do finally pull back behind their front line. We also have a Branch Wraith bringing Awakening in the Wood and Earthblood. And for mobility, we do have 1 unit of Wild Riders, and that will wrap things up for the Wood Elves. And now let's get right on into the meat and potatoes of this battle. So what you have, Count Noctilus kind of waiting forward a little bit as the Vampire Coast does actually push up, getting some nice shots raining in, doing a little bit of damage to the Eternal Guard, but we have the Arrows of Kurnus flying high into the sky. First shot missing, second shot just hitting the crew. Other Arrows of Kurnus does connect some more with the crew of this mortar, but none of the artillery pieces themselves have been taken out of the picture. And we do have the Deepwood Scouts opening up as the Scurvy Dogs quickly are able to pull back to avoid that incoming fire, doing a little bit of jukes left and right to avoid those incoming shots, wasting a few volleys from the Deepwood Scouts in the process. More shots raining in, doing some good work against the Dryads, though Count Noctilus will want to be firing in against these Wild Riders once they finally do get closer. But this Glady is going to want to be staying far away from that kind of front line, because we do have 3 handgunners mixed in, as well as 1 of the deck gunners as well, who will do a ton of damage with the sustained fire. We also have a zombie pirate gunnery mob doing some nice poking damage as well. Though the Scurvy Dog have been able to take some fire as their leadership is wavering a little bit, but they should be able to pull back no problem whatsoever, as it looks like a breath attack getting into the side of these bombers, doing 50% health in just 1 volley. And now that the Deepwood Scouts have opened up, taking that bomber unit out very, very quickly is going to be a very good steal by the Wood Elves, and a Prey of Anathrema actually goes down on the Scurvy Dogs, as the Wood Elves do look to try and eliminate some of the mobility that the Vampire Coast does bring. Earthblood does go down on the Glade Lord, trying to get her up in terms of health. But now the front line of the Wood Elves, who has been depleted rather considerably by the mortars, is now starting to advance, as they are actually pulling back in favor of letting the Deepwood Scouts do their shots for them, as it looks like a Wraith Storm is actually going to be going down, targeting these Deepwood Scouts. Maybe not the best target there with their sparse formation. I think using that against the Glade Lord or the Branch Wraith would have been, or even the Waystalker would have been the way to go for that. But the front lines are starting to engage as we get a nice another Arrows of Kurnus, though again not taking out any artillery pieces, just some of the crew, so not necessarily the best luck in terms of that. Some of the Dryads already routing, as the bounce power is starting to shift a little bit in a Vampire Coast favor, if only slightly, as the front line is kind of just washing up against the tide of gunpowder and bombs of the Vampire Coast. And the Glade Lord herself has taken a decent amount of damage. Another Arrow of Kurnus coming in, this time still not taking out any of the artillery pieces, so just bad luck on those casts from the Arrows of Kurnus. Count Noctilus firing right along the flank of these Deepwood Scouts, doing a bunch of damage. These Wild Riders really just can't get in close at this time. There's just no good avenue for them to get in. There's just so many handguns and other counters to just that one unit. If they really wanted to have that mobility advantage, I think you're going to need to see more than one, as the Vampire Coast just continues to take the advantage here, as the Mourngulls are now surrounding this Waystalker, though by doing so is going to allow them to get grouped up and targeted by all these Deepwood Scouts, doing some nice damage in return. Another Earthblood going down on the Glade Lord, as well as clipping these Wild Riders, giving a little bit of extra health as they try and deal with some of these overstretched Vampire Coast frontline units. Night Terrors are going to be pushing back these Dryads, as their leadership is going to be getting pretty low at this point, but the Night Terrors do rampage, and that will allow them to be kind of focused down a bit by these Deepwood Scouts, as the Glade Lord trying to get into things, getting on top of these Morghuls with the support of these Wild Riders and the Waystalker. And the Branch Wraith is coming in as well to help support things, but Noctilus still standing tall, hasn't been focused down at all, and with the health of these Deepwood Scouts and the continue fire in from these mortars, I don't think they're really going to be able to get a chance to get on top of Noctilus at this point. More shots starting to rain in right down the line of these Wild Riders, which is going to do a ton of damage. The Necroflex just does so much work against cavalry units, and they will be routing and potentially route right off the field as they do. But they get a little bit confused here, though even if they do come back, not a whole lot of health left on them, as the Vampire Coast continues to push farther and farther ahead. Deepwood Scouts trying to kind of kite away from the advancing units, but the overwhelming firepower from these all these gunnery mobs, the handgun units, another summons coming down of zombie pirate gunnery mobs. They will pretty much just turn and fire onto these Eternal Guard as well. I mean, you still have handguns and these deck gunners all focused in on this target, so that'll quickly free up Noctilus to be able to target his firepower elsewhere. The Glade Lord does rout, and that is going to spell disaster for the Wood Elves, and that will be our match. So we take a quick little look at the after battle report, and we do see just how well that some of these units have been able to do. The Scurvy Dogs really a non-factor here. They were able to get focused down fairly early on. Prey of Anathrema going down on them, and the focus fire from the Deepwood Scouts and the assistance of the Glade Lord in clearing them out. But even with that mobility gone, you still have the Morghuls, who are a very good screening tool against the Wild Riders of the Wood Elves, and Noctilus was just able to fire freely the entire game, as were the Mortars and all of the handgunners and deck gunners, and that was really just the biggest factor there. The Wood Elves just didn't have what it took to put pressure onto the Vampire Coast gun line, and since they were able to fire freely and get all of that value, that was just what won it for the Vampire Coast. But a very good second match, and that will put Randommnix even with Alrik Ral, pushing us into the third game, and that will be up next, so just stick tuned for that. All right, welcome to the third and final match of our first series against Randommnix and Alrik Ral. This series is tied at 1-1, and we will have Randommnix leading his Bretonnian forces and Alrik Ral with the Greenskins. So for the Bretonnians, who have spread themselves out fairly wide, we have a front line of just a couple of the peasant mobs, and they will be mixed in with some spearmen at arms. And then for the ranged support, we do have a bunch of peasant bowmen. Looks like we have 3 pox arrows and 1 of the fire arrows for the potential troll that may be on the field to do that extra damage against those regenerating units. We do have a couple more spearmen at arms in the rear protecting that back line of bowman archers, but for the mobility we do have Knights of the Realm, and then we also have 1 unit of defenders of the fleur-de-lis, the Knights Errant ROR. And for the long range, we do have a unit of field trebuchets. Now, for the leadership of Bretonnia, we have King Luan Leon Coeur. He is going to be bringing Foe Seeker, and it looks like he'll also be having the Lion Shield, giving 44% missile resist and magic resistance, which the Greenskins can bring both of which, so that's a very nice pick. And the Sword of Corone, a very nice AoE debuff centered around King Luan himself, which will be minus 24 melee defense and minus 30 armor. So especially against a blob of potentially stone trolls, that will do quite well for him. Now we also have a Damsel of Beast for the spells department, bringing Flock of Doom and Transformation of Kadan, both of which very good spells. I mean, the Lore of Beast itself is a very good lore of magic, and Flock of Doom will help punish the blob and also help provide some nice little sniping tools against any potential backline or even lords and heroes. But for the Greenskins, we have a very mobile skirmish force. That force is going to contain Force Goblin Spider Riders and some Wolf Rider Archers as well. So it looks like we have 3 Goblin Spider Riders and 2 Wolf Riders kind of mixed in. So a nice little fast-moving skirmish force, with which the amount of that they have can actually do some considerable work against any enemy skirmish or especially any enemy frontline units. For the front line, we do have some Knight Goblin ROR units who will have the Fanatics, and then we also have some Goblins mixed in with some Savage Orc Pagans as well, and some more Goblins to kind of wrap that front line up. We also do have 2 Stone Trolls who will be supported by a Black Orc Big Boss, giving that leadership buff and immune to psychology to keep those trolls in the fight. We also have a Giant River Troll Hag who will be bringing Spirit Leech, Rock Drop, and Mither. Mither especially good against Bretonia with that considerable slowing effect against the enemy cav, which will allow those stone trolls to get right on top of them, and then add that on top of Skarsnik, who does have fermented fungi and Curse of the Bad Moon. That fermented fungi will help rampage those cavalry forces right into those stone trolls and savage orcs, which will do a ton of damage to them if cast at the right opportunity. But a little smaller front line, we'll see how well they are able to fare against the kind of spread out formation of Bretonia as these forces do get underway. So King Lewin, not a whole lot that could really challenge him in the sky. You do have all these skirmishers, but they will be kept busy with the peasant bowmen and the mobility of the Bretonians. So he will pretty much be able to reign freely, and if anything gets a little out of position, he will surely be able to punish them for it. And then that Flock of Doom will also help punish the blob that will surely be coming with this particular build. King Lewin does do a little swoop on in, as we do have Spirit Leech upgraded so that cast range is considerable, so that Giant River Troll Hag able to cast that at a very large distance, able to peel off some models of this ROR unit, but King Lewin is engaged in the backline, getting some free hits off onto those goblins, but Skarsnik is hot in pursuit, though it doesn't look like he will be catching them. The blob fight that is beginning to evolve has engaged around these peasant bowmen and these spearmen at arms, though here are the Knights of the Realm coming in with a nice charge. These trolls do not want to get charged in, but as they get charged in, we have there's 3 units of stone trolls. I only saw the 2 earlier on. 1 unit of stone trolls does look like it is routing. Now with the mobility that the greenskins have, they should be able to come back. But the other 2 stone trolls should be able to punish these Knights of the Realm and even King Lewin themselves, as if a fermented fungi does go down. But it looks like we also have the Sword of Corone also going down onto the surrounding units, getting a nice reduction in all of this blob fight. So the Bretonia is probably getting the better of this initial engagement with all of this poison and fire damage coming in as well. And we do have some more Knights of the Realm kind of circling around, getting a decent surround off on the forces of the greenskins. And it does look like we do have some of the spearmen at arms starting to get peeled off, and even one of the Knights of the Realm taking a lot of damage from these stone trolls. And then 1 unit is going to be getting chased off, and I think these Knights Errant should be just enough to deal with that, though all of this firepower from the skirmishing force doing some good damage to the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, in addition to the Spirit Leeches that have been being cast by the Giant River Troll Hag. So the collapse of more and more of the spearmen at arms on top of these blob of greenskins, balance power is still actually a little bit in the greenskin favor, if only slight. Because especially, I didn't even notice this, but King Lewin got actually punished very severely by Skarsnik and that Black Orc Big Boss, and taking a ton of damage and routing. Now, luckily for Bretonia, he will be coming back, and the bounce power actually does shift dramatically into Bretonia's favor, as a lot of these forces from the greenskins have a mass rout. So we have 1, 2, both of the remaining stone trolls are routing, and if we take a little look back at what's around, the other stone trolls has shattered, and the mobility of the Bretonians and even the Giant River Troll Hag routing, as well as the bounce power shifts more and more into Bretonia's favor. And it does look like with this mass rout of the greenskins and the mobility advantage that the Bretonians do have, they're going to be able to really punish all of these routing units fairly severely. And I think that is going to wrap things up, because only the skirmishers are really left. I mean, the stone trolls have a lot of potential in the forms of their region, but Bretonia is not going to let that happen. If we take a look into the middle, I mean, Skarsnik is still sitting at pretty good health, as well as the Black Orc Big Boss. But with that summon of the Feral Manticore, that pretty much getting free damage because he will be dissipating himself anyways. It does not matter what damage he will be taking, and doing some very good work against Skarsnik. Bounce power shifting more and more into Bretonian's favor, though they do get a nice little catch out here, catching out these Knights of the Realm, 2 units of which able to rout them off and actually save the Giant Joelhag for the time being. Though I don't know if that's going to be enough, because now it is still very isolated as these other Knights of the Realm do kind of collapse upon her. And I mean, here come the skirmishers in support once again, trying to save that Giant Joelhag as much as possible, though it does rout once again, so the loss of the spells is going to be very, very felt for the Greenskins, and with how low in health she is, I don't think we'll be seeing her again. Skarsnik and the Black Orc Big Boss doing well to hold off against the tide of spearmen and peasant mobs. I mean, in theory, they should be able to win that, though they are not very good in terms of an AoE damage, so they're just going to get dragged through the mud in that particular engagement. The Greenskins' last hope really kind of does rely in the skirmishing power, as the Knights of the Realm are kind of getting a little overwhelmed, but the firepower from all of these peasant bowmen, I think, is going to be the big icing on the cake for Bretonia, and the Greenskins will concede, giving Randommnix the victory in this series, and he does advance into the semifinals. We take a look at the battle. King Lewin actually doing a lot less work than I think Randommnix would have envisioned for that battle, getting gooned out pretty severely by that Black Orc Big Boss and Skarsnik pretty early on. Though the skirmishers for the Greenskins actually did some pretty good work. They just weren't able to deal with all of that, the knights that the Bretonians were bringing in a good enough time frame for them to really assist that center blob fight, as once those stone trolls got routed off, that was pretty much just curtains for the Greenskin army, because that that frontline engagement really relied on them staying alive, and since they were peeled off so quickly by just the collapse of the Bretonians, that pretty much spelled certain doom for the Greenskins. But a very good match, and that is going to be all for this first series, with Randommnix taking the victory 2-1. So in the next few days, we will be seeing the rest of the 3 series that were not featured on the stream. So we will be seeing Evanstar and Shetland Apache, and we'll also be seeing Ronin versus Crabling for our remaining 2 series coming in the next 2 to 3 days. So stay tuned for those, and I'm sure they will not disappoint. We have some very good combatants on the field. So I hope you all enjoyed the series for today. A little longer than usual, but that will be all for today. And as always, have a good one.